G'day guys, Chris the Ultimate Recycler here. I'm on my back lawn at home and we have a lawnmower to look at today. If you've been following the channel, you'll remember we found this lawnmower in my storage shed and it came from a house clean out I did a couple of years back. I believe the elderly guy was using it, so I think it's in operational condition. But this video is really just a check over, service, maybe a few basic repairs, just what you probably should run through if you pick up a lawnmower either at an auction or from a garage sale and you haven't had a chance to see it running, or even if it does run, there's a few things you should know with regards to servicing your own. If you remember as well, the recoil starter wasn't on it, and I've borrowed this off another motor which I probably don't need anyway, so I will fit it to this mower. It has got a fairly thin cord, so I suspect that someone's put a like a cord for a whippersnipper or something in here, and it's not super long, that's it. So we will put another cord in this as well. The catcher is in pretty good condition, but it doesn't fit properly. The guy's been using it like just with a discharge chute tied up with a bit of Telstra rope, which is pretty standard, and the handle's also broken and the catcher won't go in properly. Well, it goes in but it won't clip there, so this has been bent a bit. We will fix that up as well. We'll check the blades, we'll give it a service, oil, air filter, fuel filter if it's got one. We'll go through the whole thing and hopefully we'll have a good running lawnmower at the end of it. And if it does turn out to be a good one, I think I'll upgrade my lawnmower to this one, because the Honda 160cc, I think it's a 5 horsepower engine, might be 5.5. They're a pretty good engine. It is a genuine Honda, it's not a Chinese copy. It's on a solid cast aluminium base, which is a Rover. It was a Rover Paramount, and I noticed it's missing the Rover badge off the front, but all the wheels seem in pretty good condition. There's not excessive slop or anything in them. The case isn't damaged, well, the housing isn't damaged. So it will be a good one to keep and use, particularly with the catcher. My lawn does take a fair bit of raking if I don't use the catcher here. Alright, so first thing, I have taken it to the car wash and given it a good spray. There is a fuel tap there, and I don't think it's original. It's been fitted by someone. It's not a bad idea. I'll talk about that later, but it does look like it needs a bit of a tidy up. The clamps actually aren't over the hoses. Now, it did clean up pretty well. The catcher's in good condition as well. It's not cracked. A little bit faded from sitting around in the sun, but that's okay. And it has got the grill inside so that the grass doesn't fly out the vents, and you do have to make sure that grill doesn't get blocked up, because if the air can't get out, grass can't get in. And you can see the handle here, it's not really broken, it's just lost one of the pop rivets. So we'll fix that up, we'll get rid of the rope. First of all though, we'll get it into the bench and start checking some things. Okay, it is with much pleasure that I can now push a lawnmower into my shed, although it is a bit squishy around the corner there. I'll have to clean up that part too. So we'll lift it up onto the bench. There's still not a lot of room in this shed, but we're getting there. And lawnmowers generally aren't that heavy, but they are a bit awkward, so you do have to watch your back. There we go, a mower on the bench. It's been a long time since I've been able to do that. Now, we will deal with this recoil starter soon, and even if it was attached, I would resist the urge to pull the rope and try and start it, because first thing on a mower that hasn't been used for a long time, we need to drain the fuel. It's going to be stale. It probably will cause problems. Might even have water in it. We'll have to check the bowl of the carby to see if it's clean. The tap has been left, oh no, that's on position. So the tap's been left on. I suspect that's broken. The bracket, yeah, I think that went up there. So maybe that was original and it's broken the bracket. Okay, I don't suppose it's not really in the road of anything. Doesn't matter if it hangs there. Although I think we'll try and fix the bracket, give us something else to do. So the little wire clamps aren't pushed up over the tap. So we'll have to take the tap off to try and fix it. But I want to drain the tank. I'm not even sure if there's anything in the tank. But if you try and start a mower with stale fuel in, you're going to suck all the fuel right through into the engine. And the tank looks almost bone dry. So we should be able to disconnect this. The rubber's gone a little bit hard. Doesn't want to slide off the barb very easily. Give it a bit of a twist maybe. There we go, it does move. It's coming off slowly. There we go. So nothing in the tank at all, because that's coming straight out of the bottom. So that's a good thing that there is no fuel. We might flush a little bit through just to make sure there's no debris there, and there's possibly a strainer in the bottom of the tank, but I can't quite see it through the hole. But we're just got to make sure that fuel flows through to here. I'll take the tap off the other line now. My fingers just aren't as strong as they used to be. It's got it. All right, so you can see the bracket's broken across there. We'll take the other bit off in a second and we'll look at what we can do to fix that. Okay, next step, I'm going to disconnect the throttle cable because I think it needs a bit of a clean up and a lube. So I'll just loosen this clamp. Goodness, that's tight. It's got it. I'll probably take that right off, I think it's easiest. Oh no, that'll do. Okay. So if I operate the control at the other end, it does move, but it's a bit kinked and it's fairly tight. So I'll fix that up later. Now we'll take the air cleaner off. No, the air cleaner doesn't look too bad. That's good. Yeah, that looks pretty clean. So it's just a pleated paper filter. And it looks like it might have been fairly well maintained, or perhaps just not used in dusty conditions. A little bit dusty, or just blow a bit of air through it. Or you shouldn't blow high pressure compressed air through these, but it gets rid of all of any bulk build up. But I think that's pretty good. Good news, we don't have to buy an air filter. All right, we'll take these two bolts out. There's three actually. Two go into the carby flange, I think. One just goes into a bracket. They'll be 10mm. And I know that because 10mm is the size that most people lose. For some reason, it's always a 10mm socket or spanner. No, they are, well, I know it's metric because it's a Japanese-made engine. And 10mm is the most common size on these small engines. Okay, so we'll take these three out. These ones go all the way through the carburetor and hold it to the manifold. But we'll try not to crack the seal on the carby gasket to the manifold, if we can help it. Although it might already be loose. Okay, now we'll have a breather hose behind here. Oh, that's just popped off, so that's just a breather from the crankcase that comes through into the behind the filter. A bit dirty behind there, we'll give it a clean up. And the carby is loose. All right, that won't really matter. But we want to get in and clean the bowl and give the carby a basic clean out. So I think, oh, we take this whole bracket off, will we? Okay, it might be easiest to take the whole bracket off. We'll be able to get the rest of the fuel tap off that way as well. You normally wouldn't go to this much trouble for just a service. You can access the bottom of the carby bowl from the front to just drain the carby, make sure there's no water or any corrosion in there. But given I want to clean it up a bit better and I'll probably be keeping it, we may as well have a good inspection. Right. It's all held in by one. Right, we have the gasket, which looks okay. I don't know why that's interesting. It looks like the gasket, the bolt's been loose and the gasket has moved around a bit. So there's the bolt. I think there's a washer on the front here that looks like it's going to stay there. So we have some linkages. We have a wire to the coil, which is the stop switch. It looks like that just unplugs. Okay, so there's our stop wire out of the road. Now we have the choke linkage here. And last of all, down this end we have a governor spring. There's usually a couple of holes on the governor arm. This is in the hole closest to the front. And there's only one spot it can go on this little lever. We're going to leave that hang there. So that needs a good wash up. And there's the remainder of our bracket for our fuel line. We'll take that off and fix that before we reassemble. So our fuel line and our main governor linkage that works the throttle. So the throttle on these carbies works via a governor internally in the crankcase, and when you move your throttle control, it tensions this spring more, which then allows the governor to work against the spring, and he regulates the revs straight onto the butterfly of the carby. So it's got a spring on it too. I think it just stops a little bit of hunting when the engine surges a bit. So we can unhook that through the little hole there and take that linkage out there. So now our carburetor is free. It's quite dirty on the outside, but I'm a little concerned about this gasket that went in here. It's still sealed around the inner part, the venturi of the carby, so I think that's okay. There's just some venting to the outside atmosphere. So really it only needs to seal around the inner circle. So I think that will be fine. Okay, we'll leave that linkage sit in the top there so that we remember where it goes. And we also have 10 mil, whoops, there's a bit of fuel coming out and it's probably very stale. Right, without tilting the carby again, let's undo the bottom float bowl if we can. That's got it. And sorry, you're not probably seeing much at all. What I'm trying to do is undo the float bowl, the chamber, and drop it down without too much coming out the bottom, but I don't think there's anything really in there now. So there's our little bolt that holds the bowl on. Oh, there we go. And I wanted to see what muck's in the bottom of it, and it is rather dirty. In fact, no, that's not water, that's just stale fuel. So that's right, there's been no water in there. It's quite dirty, but it doesn't look corroded, so that's good. We'll give that a wash out. And our float assembly here looks okay. Needle and seat in there. It's a little corroded around the bottom of the die-cast housing, so maybe it has had water through it. Certainly not clean fuel, not super clean anyway. So we'll give that a good wash up. I'll wash the entire carby out and I'll blaze a bit of compressed air through it, especially through the main jet at the bottom, and we should be good to reassemble that. So that's followed our fuel line from the tank through the tap, which we have to fix the bracket. And the fuel lines, they're okay. They're not super hard, but they're not super flexible either, but they're still okay to use. And that's where a carby goes into the engine. So that's the fuel system. Now the next thing I'm going to check before we go any further is to see if we have ignition, see if we have spark. So we can remove the plug boot, and there's our spark plug. It looks like it's loose. Goodness. Finger tight spark plug. Not normally what you find. I wonder if it has had trouble running and someone's had it out. Looks okay. So when you're looking at a spark plug, you don't want to see a whole build-up of black carbon. That would indicate it's running too rich. It might mean that the air filter was blocked. You don't always also want to see it quite white and chalky. It means it's been running too hot. That actually looks pretty good. A little bit oily, but that's okay. So I think that spark plug's okay. So we need to see if we've got a spark, if the ignition system's working. Now, because we haven't got the pull starter on it, we're probably not going to be able to get a spark. Usually you've got to build up a fair few revs before these electronic ignitions will spark. On the old point systems, you would get a spark just by flicking it like that. In fact, if you held the lead, you would jolt your arm off on a good ignition system with points. The electronic ones don't usually kick in until you get a fair few revs. So I can't get any sort of spark there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a screwdriver in here and hold the shaft and just feel. Yeah, I can just feel a slight pulse. Not enough to make my arm jump. You need to be comfortable with electric shocks, but it's not, if you're in control of the flywheel, you're not going to boot yourself. I can feel a spot there where it's giving a slight pulse. Some electronic ignitions won't give you anything until you get the right revs. This one feels like it does, and it feels like the faster I spin it, the more powerful that jolt gets. I would not let anyone else spin that. It's something you need to do yourself, because then you're in control of your own pain. So if we put that back in here and we do what the old guy used to do and start the lawnmower with a drill. We can find a drill with a socket and we can spin it over and see if we have spark. So I just made myself a fitting. I just grabbed a bolt with, it actually had a round head on it, and I just ground it back to a square that suits the socket extension perfectly. So, and that's the right size socket, so that can go in the top there. This can go in my little drill. Hopefully it's powerful enough to drive it, and we should be able to spin it over a bit faster. We've got to spin it the right way though. That's going to work fine. Let's see if we've got spark. I'll turn the ring light off. Now we've got a chance of seeing something. Beautiful blue spark. I'll zoom the shot in so you can see that. And just a better shot of the drill turning it over. When there's no compression, they're pretty easy to turn over. So there we go. I'll hang on to that little adapter for future use. Now that we've established there's good spark, we can put the plug back in so that nothing gets back into the cylinder. We don't want contamination getting in there. And we'll do it up tight. Okay, there we go. Not too tight, but better than it was. Next, I'm going to take the cowling off because I want to make sure all the fins are not clogged up with grass or anything. Remembering it's an air-cooled engine, we'll leave the plug boot off because if we happen to flick it and there's a little bit of fuel in the cylinder, it's very unlikely because I don't think there's any fuel there anyway. And remember, we couldn't flick this fast enough to get a spark, but safe practice says when you're working on a mower, leave the plug boot off, especially if you're changing blades underneath. All right, back to our 10mm, and we've got to undo these that hold the recoil start on. And underneath those, oh no, that's all we need. That's not only holds the recoil start on, it holds the housing on as well, which is part of the fuel tank. Okay, now our fuel tank line is disconnected, remember, because we took the carby off. So that's now totally separate. A little dirty under there, but not too bad. And it looks pretty clean around the fins. What's this, a stick or something? You do get lots of things flick up when you're mowing. And if this gets caked up with grass, or if you have mice in the shed and they build a nest here, you're gonna destroy your mower because you need the cool air from the fan, which is basically the top of the flywheel is designed as a fan, and it draws air in the top and it blows it round past all these cooling fins to keep your engine cool. If the fins are blocked, your engine's going to overheat and you're going to cause a lot of damage. Okay, so there's the ignition coil with built-in electronic module to give it spark, and on the flywheel you have some magnets. And as those magnets pass, there we go, as those magnets pass very close by the coil, it initiates a spark. We don't have to do anything with that. We know we had good spark. I just wanted to make sure it was all nice and clean. Looks pretty good. Not so clean here around the back, but it's not too bad. There's no oil leaks or anything as such. I'll possibly just get a brush and some petrol and just wash it down so it's nice and clean. It's somewhere I couldn't get with the pressure washer when I was at the car wash. But basically the engine looks pretty good, and we're going to have fresh fuel. We've got good spark. We should get it to run, and as I said, it possibly was running fine anyway. The only other thing we have to check is the exhaust, and of course we need to make sure there's oil in it. Now the muffler looks pretty good. It's got a heat shield over the outside of it, but it looks okay. There's no grass built up around it that could possibly start a fire. It may have had a spark arrestor screen across here. I'm not sure. I'm not going to worry about that. And you do have to check them because sometimes you get wasps building mud nests in the mufflers, particularly on two-stroke mufflers that sometimes have a smaller outlet. And if you block the muffler up, the engine can't get rid of the exhaust fumes and you won't be able to start it. So that looks okay. We'll see how it performs when it runs, but I don't think there's any issues with the muffler. I don't think it's burnt out or rusted out or anything. It's just a bit rusty on the discharge area. This is our dipstick, and we'll make sure there's oil in it. I'm not going to change the oil now. I'm actually going to run it first, as long as it's got enough oil in it, because it's much easier to change the oil when the oil's warm. And it looks like, yeah, it doesn't look too bad actually. And it looks like the level was pretty good. Okay, so that will be fine to run it. There goes the clock. Might be time for a cup of coffee, I think. So next I'm just going to wash it down a bit, but this engine now is basically, I'm satisfied that it should run fine. It's all in reasonable condition. We haven't seen any damage. There's no issues to attend to here. So I'll clean it up and we'll address all the other issues like washing up the carby, fixing that fuel tap, and then a few other little peripheral things around the mower. And we better have a look at the blades, I guess, too. And we'll do that now because I can tip it back. Now you should always tip an engine with the spark plug up in the air. That way you won't get oil drain into the cylinder or drain through into the carburetor, which soaks the air filter and causes a mess. So if we tip this up without it falling off the bench, we can have a look at the blade assembly. Oh, the blades absolutely had it. Hang on, I'll adjust the camera. That looks like it's been chewed up like some... Oh, that's... He's been mowing rocks. That would have vibrated like crazy. It would not have cut grass very well at all. We have to put some new blades on it. I've never seen blades that badly beaten up. So, I'm going to have to buy some. I don't have any Honda blades here or Rover blades. Oh, I don't think I do. Easiest way, rather than trying to get these bolts off, because it looks like the heads of the bolts are badly worn, so we will replace the bolts as well. The easiest way now would be to take the plate off the bottom. They'll take a little bit to remove, but I'm going to do that while it's up on the bench. Okay, I've propped the mower up here. The handles are actually resting on the ground. It's quite stable, so it's okay to work on it like this. You could do it on its side. Sometimes it's easier if you haven't got anywhere to prop the mower up like this. But you do have to be aware, as I said, you shouldn't really put a mower on its side, but you can put it on a certain side if you know what you're on about. You have to be aware of where the valve cover breather is, so that's where the oil's likely to come out. So the best rule of thumb, if you don't know your way around engines, is to make sure the spark plug's up. Okay, I've given that a brush off with a wire brush so it's nice and clean, because these bolts invariably get caked with gunk around them and they're really hard to get a socket on or a spanner. I'm going to use a ring spanner in this situation. But before I even try it, I'm going to give them a bit of a hit. Now, persuasion with a hammer may sound a bit rough. You need to be accurate. You don't want to burr the edges of the bolts. But a little bit of a tap goes a long way to freeing up the threads. So if you're not a very good aim, perhaps use a punch. And the center one goes into the crankshaft. The other three go into the boss. They may not need it, but it does go a long way to help loosen them up. Now, I think these are a bit bigger than 10. I think they're 11 mil. Yeah, that's it. Now, to get them off, sometimes you need to jar the spanner with a hammer to give them a jolt. We'll try this first. Be careful not to cut myself on the mangled blade. And that's, oh, there we go. So fairly firm, but I'm sure the jarring helped it. The other option is, if they're a bit hard to turn, just by pushing on the spanner. As I mentioned, you can give them a bit of encouragement with the hammer. Just a bit of jarring. There we go. And again, you need to make sure you don't have a spark plug lead on the engine when you're doing this, because you can imagine how dangerous it would be if this actually started to fire up. Even just one fire on the engine would spin this blade around quick enough to cause massive damage to your fingers. How about this one? There we go. All three of those are going to undo, which is good. But you do need to be patient. If they're too tight, give them a bit more tapping with the hammer. Maybe try and get some penetrating spray in. It's a bit hard to get in there under the blade plate, but it's worth trying things slowly and carefully rather than brute force and turning the bolt off, because if you turn the bolt off, it becomes a major job. Even just rounding the heads off would be a problem. So don't use the shifter, don't use the wrong size spanner. Okay, these are long threads. There we go. So I'll take all three of those out, and we should be able to hopefully loosen the center one as well. They're coming out well. I've had them a lot more stubborn than this. You can provide heat sometimes. You do have to be careful though. If you get it too hot, you're going to damage the bottom crankshaft seal of the engine. And you don't want to do that either, you'll have an oil leak. Okay, now the centre one I think should be 14 mil. Again, a ring spanner. And I don't know how tight this one's going to be. Oh, too tight for that. Let's just try jarring the spanner a bit. You want to use an older spanner rather than your good set for doing this. Oh, that slipped off the bolt. Now we can't possibly get any spray onto the threads here because the thread goes into the end of the crankshaft. I think we're just going to have to give it a bit more persuasion. How do we go then? There we go. So you can see how that is necessary sometimes, and you won't do any damage to the engine. Okay, a fine thread bolt too, that one. So there's our plate. You can see how bad those blades are, and it's not too bad under here. We'll clean that out before we put it back together. The blade holder's in pretty good condition, but you can see how sad these blades are. So they've got a nylock nut on the blade holding bolts. It does have provision to put 4 blades on it, and the handy thing with that is that if the D-shaped hole on the outer ones gets damaged, and sometimes if the bolts are loose it can get quite worn, you can actually swap and use the blades on these two rather than these. I don't think you need 4 blades, depending on what sort of lawn you got, but 2 blades, if they're in good condition, tend to work quite well. Okay, these are 14 mil as well. They're not usually as tight. The nylock nuts never seem to seize on like normal nuts do. If you don't know what a nylock nut is, they have an extension to the nut with a piece of nylon in there like plastic, and that goes a long way to stopping them vibrating off. I guess it has a function, perhaps inadvertently sealing the threads from getting moisture on them, but they always seem to undo better. Okay, with those off, we can give these a tap. Oh, don't lose our washers. We're not going to reuse those bolts. The heads are nearly ground totally away, and they do have little tensioning washers underneath, which you get when you get a new bolt kit and blades. Not much left of that, is there? That's crazy. Alright, our plate's in pretty good condition. The D holes on that side are fine, so it's right to put new blades on it. I've just picked up some new blades and bolts from my local machinery place. They had them in stock. Have a look at the difference. Isn't that just amazing? I have no idea why someone just persisted. He wouldn't have got a cut on his lawn at all. Anyway, perhaps he was just spreading rocks. So I won't film putting them on. They're pretty straightforward. Basically, you just put the little spring washer, tension washer between the blade and the plate, and put the bolt through, and the D flat side of the hole will hold the bolt head tight while you do the nut up. And you make sure they need to go the right way up, like that. I have seen them, don't laugh, I have seen them put upside down, and obviously that's not going to cut anything. The purpose of the bent up piece at the back is to actually throw the grass, and it throws it around the arch of the mower and into the catcher. So I'll put those on, and we'll put the plate back on. Then we've finished underneath. Okay, the assembly is back together, the bolts are tight, and if you've done everything right, it will be flat across the bottom. The curve on the blades goes back up, as I mentioned before. Now these are swing blades, so they're designed, if you hit something, to swing back out of the road. They should be firm, almost tight, but if they hit something they will bend out of the road, and centrifugal force will straighten them up while it's running. So they can be a little loose, but they certainly don't want to rattle, and if you've got it right they will move if they're hit, so just make sure that is the case. These ones have a particularly high flute at the back, so they don't actually spin back right out of the road, but they're designed to give when you strike something solid, as opposed to most American mowers that have a solid bar blade, and if you hit something with that, you're going to bend the crank on the motor, pretty well impossible to bend the crank on the motor with one of these setups. Much better in my opinion. Alright, you also need to make sure that it doesn't hit anything by spinning it round, in case the side of the mower has had a bit of a ding or something. So that's all good to go. Right, I've been cleaning up these other parts. I've given everything a good wash in petrol, and I've blown some compressed air through everything. It's certainly a little crusty around the bottom of this carby housing, but it will be fine. It's just really stained more than anything, so it must have had water in there at some stage. Our choke linkage came off. I think it went in that spot. That looks right. I've blown the air filter through, and I've cleaned up all these other brackets, so it's right to assemble. But we do need to fix that tap, so we'll take the piece off here, and we'll take it off. I'm thinking we could probably JB weld it. There's lots of area to get a good bond, and as long as we can still get the hose on, and that will be plenty strong enough. Be nicer to have it fixed and out of the road. While the glue's drying on that tap, let's replace the rope in the starter. This is still working fine. It's just the rope I think is a bit thin, and it doesn't have a long travel. It might be original. I probably doubt it, but it might be. You can see how the starter pulls pull out here, and that's what engages in the top of the flywheel, the lugs on the top, and it turns the engine over. And once it starts and you let go of the rope, they retract in so that the flywheel can spin without fouling on anything. So that's all working fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it right out, full travel, and we'll drop a screwdriver in there so that it doesn't unwind, and we can pull the rope back up. Now, if we had the bolt out, obviously we've got danger of the spring flying out, so we don't want to do that. We'll snip that off, and we can pull that through, and we'll feed the new one through. There we go, it fits, and it's a little bit thicker. We'll tie a knot at the end. Now it's a nylon cord, and I often melt the ends of the knot with a cigarette lighter just so it doesn't fray. And we'll do that perhaps in a minute, but that'll be fine in there like that. So now we can take our screwdriver out, and that will retract, and we'll unwind it off the spool. I'm not sure how much it will take. We'll probably get as much on the pulley as we can. Of course, the spring may lose its tension by winding up or winding down further than it used to. Yeah, that's not quite retracting as quick as it used to, but we've got a lot more cord in, heaps more. Oh yeah, that's plenty. I think that should be okay. We have to rescue the handle off the other piece of cord. So we'll pull that out of there. That's quite worn. And we'll snip this here. We've got plenty of length. And we can feed that through here, and a bit of a double knot here because there's a bit more room in the handle. And we don't want the handle pulling off the end. And that's pretty good. Poke that in there out of the road. Okay. So it's not pulling, well, it is pulling right in, but it's a little bit sluggish right at the end, as you can see. Now, most small engines give you a little notch in the pulley to retension, and this one doesn't. It's the first one I've seen that actually hasn't. But I think we can still squeeze the rope around. So what I'm going to do, I'll get my long nose pliers. So I'll loop the rope up through here. And if it'll fit around the housing, it will. Usually there's a notch in the pulley to do this, and we can actually give it another lap of tension. Wind the spring up one more lap, and now it should pull in. That's better. All right, so that's good. We've done that. Pretty easy to work on most of these. People sometimes get a bit worried about pulling these apart because if you take them apart too much, the spring will fly out. Generally, if the spring's still connected and you can get recoil on it, you actually don't need to take it out. Obviously, if the spring's broken or if it's let go one end, you do have to, but generally it's not as scary as you may think. All right, so that's ready to go back on when we have it finished. Next step, we do have to repair the back chute here. The back chute of the mower has been a bit bent and we've got to reattach the handle. Okay, let's start by getting rid of this old Telstra rope. It gets used for everything, this stuff. I believe Telstra use it to drag cables under roadways and things, and they're legally only allowed to use it once. Or, you know, that's maybe it's not a legal issue, but maybe that's the rules is that they're only allowed to use it once. And I guess if it breaks halfway under a road, you've got a big problem. So there's often a lot of it turn up on Marketplace and everywhere, and it's probably been used once, but still perfectly good. Certainly fine for this sort of job. But we don't want it on here. We want this handle attached, and I want to use the catcher on this. So it just has some pop rivets. This one's just broken off. Can we get the head out easily? There we go. So I'll try and find a decent pop rivet, and we'll reattach that. It's a couple of days later. I found a suitable pop rivet. It didn't take me 2 days to find this. I've just been busy with other things, and I need to get this lawnmower off the bench. So that's the right size. So we'll just pop rivet that into there, which is all that was done originally. There we go. As good as new. Now, the issue with the catcher not fitting properly, I'm just going to panel beat this edge with the hammer once I get it outside. It's just a matter of it's been bent and it won't fit over the contour of the catcher. So that'll be easy to fix, but that's all done now. Beauty, one more job down. Now, I've cleaned up all of our parts and I've let the JB Weld set on our fuel tap here, which I think should be pretty good now. It flexes a little bit, but oh, okay, didn't last. Okay, I guess there wasn't a lot of surface area there. I didn't want to really glue it to the bracket because then you can't replace it easily. It's not going to matter that it hangs on the fuel line. It wasn't in the road anyway, so probably the best thing would be to buy another tap, but this tap still works fine, so I'm just going to leave that hanging on the fuel line. And if I was going to sell the thing or doing it up for someone as a paying job, I would probably replace the tap. But for my use, I think I'm going to keep this one. We'll just leave it how it was. All right, it was worth a try. With all these parts cleaned up, it's now time to put the unit back together. Now, while I was cleaning up around the cylinder head there a little bit, or the cylinder side there, the plastic manifold came off that the carby attaches to. The gasket's still on the cylinder there, and that's quite okay. And the other gasket, as we saw, had a little bit of an extra hole down there. I suspect what's happened is that the guys had the carby off and the gasket has slipped down one way, whichever way it goes, and then he's kind of forced the bolt through, not realising it wasn't aligned, and he's done the bolt up and it's punched a new hole through the gasket, and it's allowed the gasket then to move. But I think it'll be fine. It's still intact around the part it needs to be, and I'm going to use some old aviation former gasket here. It's the non-hardening type, and I've used this for many years. In fact, this one itself probably dates back to the 80s, and it's really good stuff for this sort of job. You can probably buy new compounds now that work a little bit better, but I've had no troubles with that. The gaskets on the other side of the carby, on the air intake side, aren't so much of a problem, because where does that go? That goes there. There's a gasket on the carby, then it goes to that plate, then there's a gasket from that plate that goes to the back of the air filter housing. If they leak a bit of air, the only drama is you may get some unfiltered air through into the engine, which isn't good, but the engine will still run fine. Whereas if you have a gasket leak on this side of the carby, on the manifold side, it will upset the fuel mixture. The engine might run a bit leaner, it might run hot, it might not idle very well, causes a lot of problems. So we've got to make sure that the gasket on that side is okay. And the ones here aren't damaged, so they'll be fine. I'm not going to put any sealant on the outside ones, but I will put some sealant on the inside. Okay, we'll just put the lightest touch around here. I'm just going to basically use it as a bit of almost like a glue, just to stick the manifold to the gasket. And we don't want it dribbling down on the inside. And that should seal beautifully. A little bit around the bolt holes to help it stick. And we're going to make sure we have it the right way up. Okay, we'll just make sure that the holes are lined up. Now we do have to put them all together at once, which is a bit of a challenge because we need to get the air filter backing plate lined up as well. So we'll line all these up. That one goes there. We can actually put this short bolt through to hold those together. Okay, so the less individual parts we've got, the better. We'll probably put the carburetor on here. We have to hook these linkages up as well. And we also have to make sure that this breather hose goes onto the back here. So it's a bit of a tricky situation to line everything up at the same time whilst not knocking the manifold off there. I can see why perhaps his gasket slipped. Probably using some compound would have helped. Alright, so the choke linkage is on. We've got the stop wire as well. And the throttle linkage as well. Alright, wish me luck. Perhaps what we'll do is, we've got to put the fuel bowl on as well, although we could probably do that afterwards. But we might as well do it now so everything stays clean. I think I'll leave that loose for now so that we can actually run a bit of fuel through once we've got it assembled. Right, now where are our long bolts? Okay, they're through. Now we can put this gasket on. I'll put a little bit of sealing compound around the back, and then the bolts will hold the gasket properly. I'll make sure it goes the right way. I think it goes that way. Now just put a bit around the outside just to help hold the gasket. But really the critical part is that inner ring. It needs to seal properly. We don't want to get excessive compound anywhere. Alright, I think that should be pretty good. Let's just make sure that's even. And that one goes on that way. Again, if this was a customer job, I would probably be ordering a new gasket for it. But I think this will be fine here. Now we need a little bit of sealing compound around this side as well to stick to the manifold. Okay, that's all together. These are very awkward. It'd be much easier if the car be bolted to the manifold separately. Now, I think we can... I'll better plug this wire on now. And we also need to get the throttle cable through because we need to work that on an angle. Okay, throttle linkage, sorry. And the little linkage spring is in. Our gasket's falling around, but at least it's held by the bolts. Our stop wire is now in. And the only other thing we need to make sure we line up is the breather hose. We don't want to knock the manifold off the cylinder. I think we'll put the breather hose on later. I think we can reach it. Righto, you're not going to see now, but I should have the bolts going in through the manifold. That'll keep everything aligned. Now just nipping these bolts up finger tight. Sorry you couldn't see any of that. I barely had room to see myself. That's all lined up pretty well. Everything's connected. We'll put the bolt through the bracket here. And we still have the little governor spring to hook up. I'll tighten up all these bolts and we'll make sure all the linkages work. So that's all back together, and a couple of checks to make sure we've got it right. I've hooked up the throttle cable again. I did free up the cable and straighten a few bends in it, and it works fine. All our springs are connected. This is our fuel line. So when we go through the travel of the cable, when we go right back, you've got to note that actually this is flat out. So right forward or back on the control, but it's actually fast, and then choke, and the lever in here pushes up, which closes the choke butterfly. You probably can't see that behind the plastic. So at full travel, it needs to operate the choke fully, and when you back the choke off, it's at fast, at flat out, and you'll know that because there's some spring tension on the governor arm here. And when you go down to the other end of the travel, it takes it down to idle, which means this will be loose, and right round full travel is there. It needs to operate the stop switch, and I can see that the lug is just touching the switch now. So that's the extent of the travel from the stop switch being operated. Releases the stop switch so it'll start and it's on idle, and then you rev it up more through to the fast. But for starting, it's full travel that operates the choke. So that's all connected properly and works fine. We just have to hope that old gasket holds in, but I think it'll be all right. Now we have the fuel tap to put on here when we put the tank on, but I want to run a little bit of fuel through that first to make sure there's no muck in the lines or in the bottom of the tank or in the tap. And then we'll connect that up, and then I've still got the fuel bowl bolt loose, and we'll make sure we get a bit of fuel coming through there as well, just so it flushes the system out. And we're pretty well done, I think, once we've done that. Let's pour a bit of clean petrol in the top here. Not very much, and it's coming through fine. So there's no blockages in a strainer or anything in there, and it doesn't look like there's any sediment or any water come through, so that's good. So our tap goes on next, and that fuel line is a bit hard, but I think it'll be okay. I'll put a little wire clip over it, but it's probably not needed. Now the tap is in on position, so let's turn it off. And I'll put our fuel back through. So we have no leaks, and it looks like the tap holds nicely. If we turn that on, yep, flushed a bit through the tap, that's good. So now we can plug that into the fuel line that goes to the carby. There we go, and as long as it doesn't get in the road of the governor spring, I think it'll be okay. We might put a cable tie somewhere, perhaps just back to this bracket, and that'll hold it out of the road. There we go, that's up out of the road, and it's not going to get in the road of the travel of the linkages, and it keeps it well away from the spring down the bottom. So that's good. We won't turn it on just yet because we'll have to get ready for the fuel to come out under the carburetor. Now I did tighten the bottom bolt up to make sure the float's secure, and I've taken, there's a drain one out the side. Not all float bowls have a drain screw, but this one does, so I've taken that out. I'll pop a rag under here, and we can turn our fuel tap on, and we should get some fuel come through. There we go, it's trickling through nicely. So that's good. We'll put the drain plug back in, and we'll turn the fuel tap on. We'll put a little bit more fuel in the tank just to make sure that the float actually closes the needle when the bowl's full and we don't have it flooding. But everything seemed okay in there, so I'd expect that will be fine. Tighten this one up. Doesn't need to be too tight, they've got a fibre washer under them. Okay, we'll turn our fuel tap back on. But we don't have very much fuel in the tank anyway. I'll put some more in actually and make sure it doesn't spill out here. Okay, no sign of flooding, that's good. Right, we'll turn the tap back off. That's all together and ready to run. We just have the air filter to put back on, our fuel cap when we put a bit more fuel in it, and to bolt on the starter assembly, and then we're ready for a test. Okay, the mower's all back together. It's getting late in the day and we've had some showers today, so the grass is a bit damp. I'm not going to mow it today, but we will make sure the mower starts. I've reassembled the recoil starter. Everything else is right. I've just put some fresh fuel in it, turned the tap on, giving it a little while to fill the bowl up because everything was totally dry, remember? And it should start pretty easily. Now I won't change the oil today, but what I'll do next time I have a moment is I'll run it and warm it up, and then we can change the oil. Pretty easy just to tip the oil out and put about 500 ml, I think they take, of fresh oil in it. But otherwise, she's all right to go. So let's see if it starts. I've got the control set on choke. I like to give them just a slow pull over. So we've got plenty of rope now, and it should start pretty easily. Okay, well that runs okay. It needs a few adjustments. It is hunting a little bit when I drop it down to idle. That's that surging you can hear. It might have an idle mixture screw. I didn't look for that. But certainly started first pull. Blew a little bit of smoke because we did have it upside down. Well, not quite upside down, but we had it turned up. A little bit of oil probably going into the cylinder. But yeah, that's pretty well right to go now. Probably could do with a new air filter just to give it a really good birthday. Some fresh oil. And I think I'm going to hang on to this mower. It's going to cut so much better than my other one, especially with new blades on it. So there we go. Thanks for watching. I hope you got a little bit of information out of that that's useful. We will probably do some more small engine videos as we find them, and let me know below what you'd like to see. This has been a particularly long one. Maybe I'll break it down into smaller videos on how to do this and how to do that rather than just one big service and check over. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.